Hi everybody, it is March 13, 2024. It is the 13th. Hello Lindy London, Andrew Cruz, Alicia DeMoss, Tom, and L2024. Thank you for coming in, and Sherry Hughes, thank you very, very much. Marty Lauderdale, Mama Rages. Okay, thank you. And T. Lamb. Almost every moderator is here. Thank you very much, you guys. And Barb in Ohio, and Bluesman, Sunny Fournier. There are just some subscribers when I see their username. I remember the good old days. I do. Shauna Howard, Super Painting 62. Hello. Wonder Why, hello. Ray Clay. We the old folks on YouTube. Not in age, but just hanging on, going through this nightmare in the psych world together. Laura Larson, hello. Angelos. Patricia White, hello. Mike Luft. Christy Hazelwood. Hi guys. Nice to see you. Mama Rages, I sent you an email today. Another day. That's right, T. Lamb. Another day. Oracle 11. Okay, Phil Strange, Mr. Tech 33. Mr. Tech 33. Do we have to watch out for you? That number alongside Tech. Jay Northrop, hello. All right, so I don't have much today. I am going through a change. I am definitely going through a change, and it's not comfortable, but it is what it is, and I just didn't have it in me to go through all of the hell alone, doing all of the research. But Christine in Colorado, Justin Wynn, James Brandenburg, Jake M, hello. Silent Walk, hello. We do have some flooding. Melody Dawn. We do have some flooding. Flooding in Maine. And Indonesia. And other places, but flooding in Maine.
And out. And residents and emergency responders were well prepared for Sunday's storm, knowing how the last ones went.
It was crazy. Crazy.
With these flooding incidents, it's difficult for us to get into some neighborhoods.
The threat of coastal flooding returned to the forefront of residents' minds after January storms, with Sunday's forecasted high tide, heavy rainfall, and powerful winds along the coastline.
Are you guys planning on evacuating here soon?
Yes, ASAP.
Officials advised beachgoers of the possible dangers of the incoming tide, while people chose to watch the waves. By high tide, flooding was already ongoing, with some drivers not heeding the warning to turn around. The storm was in and out, with sun breaking through the clouds not too long after high tide.
The tide has gone back down now as we're up along Old Orchard Beach in Maine. the water did not get as high as what previous storms did. In the January 10th storm, high tide brought water all the way rushing inland beyond the welcome sign of Old Orchard Beach. Now at least it sat a little bit lower and closer to the pier. We don't see as much damage, but there was still some flooding. We talked to one woman earlier today who tells us what she saw throughout the rest of the afternoon.
It was a perfect day. I got to tell you, it was nasty, but it is nice now.
Good. Now you have a nice day, but those who had their cars flooded out, their homes and businesses flooded out, not so much. But remember, coastal communities, it's not the only areas and not the only communities that are being flooded out, as we well know, right? But they're getting people off the coasts because the elite want the coast.
In the last year, I would say that this is a little bit out of the ordinary.
This hasn't been a typical year, Saco Police Chief Jack Clements says as he stands in a flooded roadway near Camp Ellis.
We typically close down this intersection once a year. In the last 4 months, I think we've closed it 3 times.
This storm is the cherry on top of what has been a couple of busy months as towns try to recover from the back-to-back storms in January.
There's going to be a lot of work to get this cleaned up in the spring.
Work that some public works crews, like in Old Orchard Beach, were prepared to begin right after high tide rolled through.
She's gone!
The biggest storm Maine has seen so far this month moved in Saturday night into Sunday, bringing flood warnings were issued.
What could possibly go wrong, Carrie?
The rainfall amounts as of Sunday morning include 1.8 inches in Gray, 2.8 inches in Arundel, and 2.9 inches in Gorham. Apart from that, a winter storm brought renewed impacts of coastal flooding to southeast New Hampshire over the weekend. A weekend winter storm brought a wide range of impacts to the northeast, from snow squalls and heavy rain to coastal flooding in New England. Strong onshore winds up to 55 mph pushed seawater ashore in New Hampshire on Sunday morning, flooding homes and streets in Hampton Beach on Sunday morning. And 72 mph on an island off Rockland. There were substantial power outages Sunday, especially in coastal areas that were hit with the strongest winds.
Why doesn't mainstream media show what all of these businesses and homes flooded out in Maine? Do you think it might elicit some independent thought from people? Like, why are so many homes and businesses and cars getting flooded out every time it rains? No, forget it. Sorry to have even brought it up. Eddington, Oklahoma. Large grass fire causes smoke to cover highway. So I can't play this. This is Live Storms Media. If you want to watch it, I'll throw the link in the chat. Click on it, watch it. But interesting. Another grass fire. Is this going to get out of control for us, huh? Maybe take out more cattle, ranches. This, I I literally saw it 5 minutes after it was posted, and that was like at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So I hope we're not looking at more ranches, more cattle deaths, more destruction. And massive landslide bulldozes homes in Sherman Oaks. Sherman Oaks, very nice area, California. These homes are getting red tagged, getting yellow tagged. They're mudslides, landslides all over the place in California, Southern California in particular.
You walk up this driveway, and again, we had that video that shows just how flattened that home is. It's completely destroyed. You tell us that it's red tagged.
Correct, yeah. So working with our partners from the Department of Building and Safety, they showed up, obviously, the significant amount of damage there. It's going to be red tagged. The other two homes that were impacted to a certain extent, those are going to be yellow tagged at this point.
We were here earlier this morning. Tell us a little bit more about the extent of the evacuations and whether or not other people in the area need to be evacuating as well.
So with the initial information we had getting on scene, obviously the risk is there. So our firefighters immediately engaged and started doing the door knocks, getting those folks out of the immediate danger area and get them a safe location. Fortunately, for the home that unfortunately was damaged and severely damaged, nobody was home at the time. It was under renovation. The other two homes did have folks that were inside. It was occupied, so our firefighters assisted them out to a safe location.
How many people have evacuated?
So right now we're looking at total of 3 adults right now, and we're looking to hopefully be able to get those folks back into their homes at some point this morning.
Wow. You know, we've seen the gas company out here. We've seen firefighters going from home to home, assessing, whether or not other people are at risk here. What other risk does this pose to anyone else, if at all, right now?
So that's a great question. Right now, it's obviously too early to speculate. However, we do have our LAFD drone team that's on scene. They're going to put drones into the air and start to give an aerial reconnaissance of the incident and kind of see what the total impact is here.
Understood. And you were also saying earlier to another resident to just survey your land, be aware of what is going on in your own backyard, because I know other people were saying, should we pack? Should we get our car good to go and ready to get going? Should we make hotel reservations? A lot of questions, a lot of concern for those residents. Are you telling them to survey their land, sort of look out, see what's around?
So at this one point, we do feel it's a very dynamic incident where we're at a static situation now where it's not really moving to this point. However, with that said, it doesn't have to be a wildfire to have that plan in place and have that ready, set, go. And that's why we implore the residents here to know, hey, if we have to evacuate, what's the quickest route off the mountain? Where are we going to stay? Do we have all the medicines? Everything we possibly may need.
So this water that we're seeing kind of gush down the street, it's also coming from up above that street. That's coming from the swimming pools?
Correct. Yeah, our firefighters right now, they have 2 hose lines inside. They're pumping water out of the swimming pool. And now having the water evacuate out of the swimming pool so to reduce that infrastructure damage.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I do feel for these people. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to have a wildfire to be prepped and ready to go, especially in California. And let's look at radar. Hi, sweetie. Meow. What is it? Let's look at radar just to see if we've got any extremely low frequencies going. Yeah, look. Southern California. 24/7 a day. They have these frequencies. Right now, it's kind of calm with the frequencies. But notice extremely low frequencies that they can emit into the atmosphere or through the ground. What do you think these frequencies do when they're emitting through the ground? It shakes up everything. It can loosen up the ground. It can cause landslides. It can cause the destruction that a whole lot of Californians are experiencing. Supercells in Kansas. There we go. Look out, Kansas. You got the extremely low frequency hitting a supercell. And whenever you see these supercells that also here in, what is that, Illinois? Yeah. And a bit in Missouri. This does not portend good weather for you. Tornadic activity, high winds, hurricane winds, inland. Flooding, hail. All right, you guys in Kansas, be careful. And Missouri and Illinois. It's hard to watch this destruction over and over and over again. And, you know, I'm not saying that it is definitively the extremely low frequencies. I am saying that I have no doubt that these frequencies that are going 24/7 in California and have been for years, that they are doing something to the landscape. Of course they are. Oh my God. Too bad we can't have adult conversation. Oh. So here, Space One rocket in Japan explodes after takeoff during its inaugural launch. No sound. Oh, man. Okay. Sorry. All I was saying was I find it very sad when I see people who have been at it for years. I know they have a target on their back. How dare they speak the truth, right? Get ruined. Get shadow banned. Get a whole lot. Some get put into psychiatric institutions. Romola. Who, as far as I'm concerned, is so sane and so, she's just a woman of grace, as far as I'm concerned, and I hate seeing that she does get, you tell the truth, you will be taken down. You have any kind of influence, that target on your back, you're going to feel the weapons come for you. Yeah. Anyway, I don't do BitChute. I don't like BitChute. So, I'm not subscribed to her here on BitChute, but I am on Odyssey. And live, it's over. Live, it's over. And the Fed is winning on all fronts. Totally unstoppable. It is over. And all of us are going to feel it soon enough. A whole lot have felt it already. And we're just sitting back waiting for it to happen. Well, a hard fall is coming for Americans. I'll link below to the video if you want to watch it, but, you know, these titles now, coming from Greg Mannarino especially, that, you know, I've been watching for years, and these titles from him now are get your money out of the banks, get prepared, it's coming, and he has never done that before. He has been for the past couple of months that I've been noticing, along with others who are saying the exact same thing. Those in finance, you know, so it's, you still have money in the bank, you might want to get it out. You know, and a whole lot of people think, why should I get it out? You know, when the crash comes, money's not going to be any good. You don't know that. It could be good for a little while. It could get you some things that you really need. So, but I wanted to hang on for 1 second, I'm sorry. Okay, 3054. What I've been seeing is not so pretty skies, you know? Not so pretty skies. I want to show you last night's not so pretty skies. Look at this. Yeah. I remember those skies. The pulsating that you see in the video That is from electromagnetic frequencies pulsating. Pulsating is very dangerous. If they were steady frequencies, they'd be less dangerous. You can't, when they're intermittent pulses that go right through your body, affecting every cell in your body, you can't protect yourself from that. And it causes a whole lot of stress, far more stress than to your body than it would if we weren't being pulsed, because your body doesn't know when it's going to be hit, and that causes more stress. And look at this. No, come on, that's not engineered. That's just a regular sky. We've had these kinds of skies all the time. Not pretty. Not pretty at all. So, just an interlude. Now, time for a backyard chicken coop. Supermarket egg prices soaring once again. Inflation is going up. Did I include those articles last night? Can't even remember now. But yeah, the CPI. Inflation increases. Oh, egg prices increase. Oh, your chicken coop? Well, do it, but eventually they're going to take it down. And any kind of backyard farming will be X'd. You won't be able to do that, because Daddy says it's not good for the environment. In fact, the carbon footprint of you gardening in your backyard, well, apparently it's worse than they ever thought. And then you have the schmucks who believe this climate change bullshit, and they get to, because there's an awful lot, or even those who don't, but don't say anything, they get to do whatever the hell they want to do. Free reign. Destroy everybody. That's how it works. And here, now, I never knew about Wawa until I left Maine and I came into New Jersey. And Wawa apparently is a big thing. It's a big thing in Philadelphia. Is L still here? Pennsylvania. When Wawa keeps shutting down locations in Philadelphia where it is beloved, one can't help but wonder just how bad things are getting in the city. And they're closing down because of crime. So Wawa is like a gas station and huge mini supermarket. These gas stations that are, I never knew that gas stations could be so big until I left the Northeast and started traveling around. Now I knew, the travel, the truck stops, of course they would be big, right? But it was in South Carolina, and I thought, whoa, they sure do love their cars. And it was like a mini supermarket. But Florida loves, you have Wawa in Florida too, huh? Wow. So, but yeah, shuttering is a happening thing now. This was the space rocket that erupted. And Bezos funds fake meat tech as the disgusting subhumans push to reset global food supply chain. $60 million investment will establish Bezos Centers for Sustainable Protein as part of the Bezos Earth Fund's $1 billion initiative to transform the food supply chain. The centers will target major technological barriers to reducing cost, increasing quality, and boosting nutritional benefit of alternative proteins by advancing science and technology. And I just go, can't wait. So, nearly 30% of Gen Z women identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. All of them? They identify with all of that? No, wait, as part of that. Women ages 18 to 26. Is something wrong here? Is something wrong? Don't you think that these changes came kind of quickly? I think so. And TikTok, the House passes a bill that will ban it. Will it be banned? I don't think so. The Senate won't pass a bill to ban TikTok. But wow, I know people who are, they spend hours scrolling TikTok. So that's not going to be very good. But it doesn't, it definitely portends more and more censorship, more and more banning of social media. And considering that TikTok has already established a very firm foothold in the United States, they banning it, it would be, there's going to be an awful lot, especially of the young. If they're not going to be able to do a TikTok challenge that is worthy of, I could die, they'll be very, very upset. So I don't think it's going to happen. And if it does happen, they're doing it to upset people. Texas sees over 1,000 tech job postings cut. So, a whole lot of people were saying it's Texas now. That's where tech jobs are going. Oh, but wait, they're cutting a whole lot of jobs? Do you see where this is all going? And it's going fast? I hope so. And again, okay, your car is secretly spying on you and driving your insurance rates through the roof. These new cars, and I'm not talking 2024, but I would say, well, for sure if you've got that OnStar stuff, but I would say in the last decade, new. Listen to this. Drivers of cars manufactured by General Motors, Ford, Honda, and other popular brands say that their insurance rates went up after the companies sent data about their driving behavior to issuers without their knowledge. It's so funny because as I'm reading this, I'm thinking to myself, how many videos did I alone post, along with an awful lot of other people saying, as it was part of Agenda 21, a part of Agenda 2030, that there is going to be complete and utter control. And I always use the example of medical insurance. Supermarkets sending your information to your medical insurer, seeing what you're buying, and then raising your rates based on what you're buying. And it's happening Ken Dahl, 65 years old, Seattle area businessman, said his car insurance costs soared by 21% in 2022 after GM's OnStar Smart Driver computerized system installed in his Chevy Bolt collected information about the particulars of his driving habits. Dahl said that his insurance agent told him the price increase was based on data collected by LexisNexis, which compiled a report tracking each and every time he and his wife drove their car over a 6-month period. The 258-page report just for Dahl contained information about the start and end times of his trips, distance driven, and other data detailing possible incidences of speeding, hard braking, and sharp accelerations. The report contained information about one particular trip in June, which lasted 18 minutes, spanned 33 miles. During that same trip, the LexisNexis report recorded 2 instances of rapid acceleration and 2 incidences of hard braking. It felt like a betrayal. Well, because it was, Dahl. They're taking information that I didn't realize was going to be shared and screwing with our insurance. Another person, a Cadillac driver based in Palm Beach County, Florida, said that he's considering a lawsuit against GM after he was denied car insurance by 7 different companies in December. He said he is planning to sell his Cadillac and that he'll never buy a GM again. The decision was based on a LexisNexis report, which detailed 6 months of his driving behavior, including numerous incidences of hard braking, hard accelerating, and speeding. He was enrolled in the OnStar Smart Driver subscription service. So he says, same with acceleration. I'm not peeling out. No, wait. He said other things. Oh, I don't know the definition of hard brake. My passenger's head isn't hitting the dash. He also said, the same with acceleration. I'm not peeling out. I'm not sure how the car defines that. I don't feel I'm driving aggressively or dangerously. GM, whose portfolio of brands include Chevy, GMC, Cadillac, Buick, but you also have Subaru, Mitsubishi, Honda, Kia, Hyundai, all of these. Ford, but Ford will only share driver behavior data with the insurance company if the driver gave explicit consent via an in-vehicle touch screen. Kia, Mitsubishi, Hyundai, Honda, and Acura enable drivers to turn off data collection relating to on-road behavior in their apps. Honda requires drivers to accept a 2,000-word terms and conditions screen on its app that specifies the company will share data with Verisk. I drive a Honda. It's a 2003. I hope I die before it dies, because I do not want to buy. I can't buy, so that's not even it's not even an option. But I can't imagine, if you have a choice, do not buy these new cars, because they're not only are they recording data regarding your driving habits, but it's a surveillance vehicle now. They're recording everything that is being said in the car. If you're alone talking on your phone, ooh, big no-no. You could receive a ticket in the mail. If you're having a conversation with the passenger, it's being recorded. everything you're doing in that car is recorded. Wow, in capitals. Everyone really should have a spring-loaded window braking tool handy in every vehicle. Is that if you get flooded, you need to break that window? Well, wow, it's only 5:45. Egypt and Belgium airdrop food. Israel bombs where they're airdropping the food. You really have to wonder, why do we have so many psychopathic people in the world? Now we understand that our leaders are psychopathic, right? Okay. But why do we have so many others who are psychopathic? Others that really should understand their orders are not really very good. They're wrong, immoral, unjust. They're psychopathic. And you would think that people would say, I can't do this. It's wrong. No, we don't. We don't. Dear Gaza, we have failed you. I have recommended you check out In Denial. Get it? In Denial. His channel. I'll put the link to this video because I'm not going to play the whole thing. But I think he has a very interesting, insightful way of thinking. And let me play it. So where is it?
Dear child, it is past midnight. I am flying at hundreds of miles an hour in the darkness, thousands of feet over the Atlantic Ocean. I am traveling to Egypt. I will go to the border of Gaza at Rafah. I go because of you. You have never been in a plane. You have never left Gaza. Planes for you are terrifying. They circle above you. They drop missiles and bombs. The ground shakes. Buildings fall. The muffled calls for help from beneath the rubble. It does not stop, night and day. Trapped under the piles of smashed concrete, your playmates, your schoolmates, gone in seconds. I am a reporter. It is my job to see this. You are a child. You should never see this.
Hey y'all, it's In Denial, your drag therapist, your lip sync assassin. As I always say, I'm in denial so you can wake up. These Hollywood stars are definitely in denial so the rest of us can wake up. As you just saw, I was lip syncing to Chris Hedges, a fantastic reporter who's been documenting the plight of Palestinians, and I'm using his voice to intercept this year's Oscar ceremony, which was so dystopian.
What do you have to say to everybody out there?
Dreams truly do come true. Started from the bottom, now we truly are here.
To know that this is going on while people are literally being slaughtered. And actually what's very interesting about the red carpet, watching how many celebrities are now skinny. You know, they've been touched by the work of an artist known as Ozempic. You know him. I mean, allegedly, I don't know who's taking Ozempic, but they're taking it. And what was crazy about that is to think that there are people who are literally paying to lose their appetite and starve, while there are people on the other side of the world who are actually starving and waiting for food to drop literally from the sky. And sometimes that food kills them. Long live Israel, girl. But anyway, this morning when I woke up, I found out who won and I watched all the speeches and all the award categories. And I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that the winner of Best International Feature, Zone of Interest, he gave a shout out to Palestine and actually said the word occupation.
Our film shows where dehumanization leads at its worst. Right now, we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict.
It was actually the Jewish filmmaker who stood up for Palestine. And to be honest, what I was expecting is that the Lily Gladstone, the actress from Killers of the Flower Moon, I was expecting her to win and actually give a shout out to Palestine because she's Native American and she has experience in being ethnically cleansed. But speaking of Lily Gladstone, when they were about to announce the Best Actress and winners of the Best Actress from previous years came on stage and addressed the nominees of this year, Jennifer Lawrence addressed Lily Gladstone.
Your advocacy offset as a powerful display of dedication, illuminating and helping us reconcile one of the darkest parts of our country's history.
Yeah, I don't think that confronting of the dark past is working because there's a dark present of ethnic cleansing that's still going on. That's what nauseates me about the hypocrisy of liberals. They will only get on the right side of history, when it's gone. Like, oh my God, that was awful. It's literally happening right now, babe. A little bit of a side note, that self-tanner or bronzer, that was a momentary lapse in judgment. A delusion, if you will. Speaking of delusion, by the way, did you see Steven Spielberg in the audience? You know he's developing a film project about October 7, which is great, of course. It's definitely an event worth documenting. It's horrific. But Steven, babe, you might want to flesh out that backstory. Yeah. Because the clock did not start on October 7. And that's what I love actually about Zionists and apologists for Israel and the Zionist project and the poor Israelis that they brainwash. For them, they genuinely believe that October 7 is when this started. And that's because life for them before October 7 was great. The occupation was not touching them. They didn't see it. It's designed. The occupation is built in such a way that they don't see it. The brutalization, the humiliation, the torture, and the arrest without charges, kicking people out of their homes, like the stuff that Israelis have the luxury not to see. So of course, when October 7 happened, it's the end of the world because this is when their problems started. So Stephen, babe, make your project about October 7, but let's talk about what happened before it. No, absolutely not, sir. And one more thing before I go back to Chris Hedges. The guy who won Best Actor from Oppenheimer, Cillian Murphy or Cillian Murphy, I don't know how to say his name, but anyway, he won. And in his speech, he said, "I stand here as an Irishman." And I was like, yes, he's about to say free Palestine. And nothing.
I'm a very proud Irishman standing here tonight, so for better or for worse, we're all living in Oppenheimer's world, so I would really like to dedicate this to the peacemakers everywhere.
I mean, that's lovely, but can we be specific? And precisely because you're Irish, you know what it's like. But I get it, I mean, this is Hollywood. This is the belly of the beast, the Zionist beast. Literally, every agent or every agency is run by somebody who's somehow connected to the Zionist project. Like, you are actually killing your career when you stand up for Palestine. So I get it, but I don't get it at the same time. So anyway, let's get back to Chris. But before I hand it over to Chris, one final thing. I'm playing my drag therapy theater show in Amsterdam here on March 22nd. It's a show like nothing you've ever seen. So tickets linked below. And now back to Chris Hedges, who, by the way, he wrote this letter when he was trying to enter in December. He tried to enter Gaza through the Rafah border and they wouldn't let him in. And he was so heartbroken and distraught. So as he was taking the plane back and, flying in the middle of the night and having just a quiet moment by himself, he wrote this, gut-wrenchingly beautiful letter to the children of Palestine.
Under the broken concrete, you hold your breath. You cover your mouth with a cloth. You walk faster. Your neighborhood has become a graveyard. All that was familiar is gone. You stare in amazement. You wonder where you are. You are afraid. You cling to your mother or father. You cover your ears and wait for the blast. Why do they kill children? What did you do? Why can't anyone protect you? Will you be wounded? Will you lose a leg or an arm? Will you go blind or be in a wheelchair? Why were you born? Was it for something good or was it for this? Will you grow up? Will you be happy? What will it be like without your friends? Who will die next? Your mother? Your father? At night you lie in the dark on the cold cement floor. You do not know what is happening. There are flashes of light. There are waves of blast concussions. There are screams. It does not stop. Are these your last moments on earth? You drink salty, dirty water. It makes you very sick. Your stomach hurts. You are hungry. The bakeries are destroyed. There is no bread. You do not fly your kite, made from old newspapers. You have seen foreign reporters. We appear after a bombing or a shooting. We sit over a coffee for a long time and talk to the adults. Then we disappear. We do not usually interview children. But I have done interviews when groups of you crowded around us. But not this time. We cannot get in. We are locked out. Reporters from all over the world are going to the border crossing at Rafah. We are going because we have children, like you, precious, innocent, loved. We are going because we want you to live. I hope one day we will meet. You will be an adult. I will be an old man, although to you I am already very old. In my dream for you, I will find you free and safe and happy. No one will be trying to kill you. You will fly in airplanes filled with people, not bombs. You will not be trapped in a concentration camp. You will see the world. You will grow up and have children. You will become old. You will remember this suffering, but you will know it means you must help others who suffer. This is my hope, my prayer. We have failed you. This is the awful guilt we carry. We tried, but we did not try hard enough. We will go to Rafah, many of us, reporters. We will stand outside the border with Gaza and protest. We will write and film. This is what we do. It is not much, but it is something. You will tell your story again. Maybe it will be enough to earn the right to ask for your forgiveness. Thank you.
Okay, so any of you watch the Academy Awards? This was not part of the Academy Awards. I can't imagine that it was. I think that somebody filmed this. That wasn't Chris Hedges also, but somebody filmed it and then had these scenes from the Academy Awards. It's a juxtaposition of these sick mother effers who are all about themselves while we have a genocide going on and a whole lot of people are just silent about it. It's sick. You know, I showed that the Academy Awards were giving out gift bags that cost $170 some odd $1,000. $170 some odd $1,000. Gift bags, individual gift bags to the Academy Award nominees, or, and it's, so there's a lot of these gift bags. How sick is this world when we have so many people who do not care about the suffering? And I have to say, whether it was Martin Luther King Jr. or somebody else who said the suffering of one person, well, this is a great paraphrase of mine, but I will not, feel at peace if there is just one person suffering in the world. And I get that. I really get it. I understand that. And yet we have more and more suffering on a daily basis in all of our countries. And yet we also have the very glaring, obvious indifference to that suffering attending it. So it's that juxtaposition that shows you that we're not getting anywhere, and things will only get better. Oh my God, did I have a positive thought? Trust me, I meant to say worse. But sometimes I say the opposite of what I mean. Oh, the mind is a very funny thing. So yeah, these people are so flippin' sick. The arrest of a 5-year-old Palestinian. Yeah, because I guess that 5-year-old is a terrorist. Traumatize them young and missed, thank you. The suffering of injustice for one is an injustice for all. Thank you. It's don't you wish that you could get through to people? Don't you wish that you could inspire people to do the work on themselves that would lead them to a place where they literally could do no wrong anymore that would harm other sentient beings, not just two-leggeds? Don't you wish that you could inspire some? Yeah. Where, whether they're soldiers or not, I mean, there are so many people who follow the orders, and a whole lot of people want to point the finger at the police and military. They're not the only ones following orders. Virtually everybody who's collecting a paycheck in our very sick, yeah, satanic system. No, I'm not religious. No, I'm not, I don't wear any labels. I'm not Christian. I'm not anything. But it's clear that you can see that there's an awful lot of people who actually believe in Satan. And they're on that path. It's not hard to imagine that, yeah, there are people who believe in Satan, just like people who believe in God. Opposites. So, and then there are a whole lot of people who are not believers of Satan, who contribute every single day to an incredibly evil satanic system, and they don't see it, or they justify how they live, how they collect their paychecks. We've been trapped in a system that so desperately needed to change a long time ago. We needed to hold those accountable. Friends really needed to be real friends. The friendship would include, keeping that friend on the right track. So when they did something wrong, you call them out. And you don't lose the friendship. The friendship actually gets stronger. But that's not how we operate. Americans are very sensitive. They're very sensitive. And why can't we accept that we're not perfect? Why can't we accept that we do things that harm other people? Why can't we accept that we do things that are wrong? Why is it so difficult? I really do believe that life is one hell of a learning lesson. But when I began to understand that, holy shit, I'm not the only messed up person in the world, it got easier to just accept all of my shitty behaviors and doing things wrong. And so I'm going to play out this video. This is Academy of Ideas, which I have recommended and have said it is by far one of the best channels on YouTube. Yes, because it helps you think, and if you have some desire to grow yourself, this is a channel that you need to subscribe to. Absolutely, 100%. So here, personal shadow, the shadow. A whole lot of people don't realize they have a shadow because they're that unaware of their own self. If you don't realize that you have a shadow and that you need to do shadow work, you are profoundly unaware, your consciousness is low, and you will be a big part of the problem, not anywhere near the solution yet.
Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. If an inferiority is conscious, one always has a chance to correct it. But if it is repressed and isolated from consciousness, it never gets corrected, and is liable to burst forth suddenly in a moment of unawareness. At all counts, it forms an unconscious snag, thwarting our most well-meant intentions. Carl Jung talks about two types of shadows: the personal shadow, the unknown dark side of our personality, and the collective shadow, the unknown dark side of society. Starting with the personal shadow, Jung calls it the thing a person has no wish to be. It represents unknown or little known attributes and qualities of the ego. It is the sum of all those unpleasant qualities we like to hide from ourselves. The shadow contains inferiorities which everybody has but prefers not to know about. They seem weak, socially unacceptable, or even evil. The shadow is most visible when one is in the grip of anxiety or other emotions, under the influence of alcohol, etc. One may suddenly blurt out a hostile remark during a friendly conversation. When we do not want to assimilate what we despise, we project it onto others. It is possible for one to be acquainted with one's shadow and be partly conscious of it, that is, under ego control. Many people, however, refuse to recognize their shadow so completely that the ego is not even aware of shadow behavior and thus has no possibility of commanding it. Under these conditions, the shadow is autonomous and may express itself in inexplicable moods, irritability, and cruelty. Throughout his writing, Jung refers to the importance of developing awareness of the shadow in psychotherapy and its projections in the individual's life. Although the shadow is usually perceived as negative, it can also be positive. In fact, exploring our shadow gives us access to many positive qualities. Jung writes that the shadow displays a number of good qualities, such as normal instincts, appropriate reactions, realistic insights, creative impulses, etc. One of Jung's closest collaborators, Marie-Louise von Franz, writes, "The shadow is not necessarily always an opponent. In fact, he is exactly like any human being with whom one has to get along, sometimes by giving in, sometimes by resisting, sometimes by giving love. Whatever the situation requires, the shadow becomes hostile only when he's ignored or misunderstood." The shadow contains all sorts of qualities, strengths, and potentials, which, if remain unexplored, give us a state of impoverishment in our personality, creating unconscious snags which inhibit the growth and embodiment of these good qualities that lie dormant in our psyche. For instance, a person might believe that being assertive is being rude or aggressive, losing the qualities of confidence and the ability to speak up for himself in an honest and respectful way, which in turn may lead to less proactivity, make it more difficult to get a raise or job promotion, struggle with money, and so on. So, when a person encounters an assertive person, deep down he feels resentment and guilt, which makes his shadow blacker and denser. These valuable aspects ought to be assimilated into actual experience and not repressed. It is up to the ego to give up its pride. We also encounter our shadow in our dreams. As a person of the same sex as the dreamer, it is what seems to be a criticism of our character from the unconscious, an inner judge of your own being that reproaches you, and the result is usually embarrassed silence. We must identify the contents of the shadow and integrate them into our personality. This is the process of the realization of the shadow, also known as shadow work. Here begins the painfully and lengthy work of self-education. One must enter into long and difficult negotiations with the shadow, a work, we might say, that is the psychological equivalent of the labors of Hercules. Through shadow work, one can observe one's shadow outwardly by watching one's emotional reactions and being radically honest about one's interactions with others, and inwardly by exploring one's dreams. This allows one to become enlightened and reduces the shadow's destructive potential, not so much as it were by waging war against the darkness, but by bringing the darkness to the light to the darkness. As Jung writes, there is no light without shadow and no psychic wholeness without imperfection. One must not strive for perfection, but rather wholeness of personality. The lifelong process of individuation creates a balance between one's conscious and unconscious realms, aligning the ego to the self, the totality of one's personality. However scary or dark it is to confront our shadow, finding truth brings relief. Discernment of the truth is the process of authenticity, a painstaking excavation into the depths of our being to explore possibilities and limitations, distortions, and the buried and often forgotten parts of ourselves and abilities. Most people, however, are too indolent to think deeply about even those moral aspects of their behavior of which they are conscious, let alone to consider how the unconscious affects them. The shadow can also consist of factors that stem from a source outside the individual's personal life. Here's when we stumble upon the collective shadow, the dark side or the unknown or little known aspect of a society and culture. It consists of that which opposes our shared and collective values. The collective shadow refers to a huge, multidimensional, often horrifying yet elusive aspect of human life, to an immensity of harm inflicted by human beings upon each other and the natural world, and to the vast after effects of such harm in subsequent generations. We find the collective shadow in the projection of darkness and inferiority, in violence and oppression, in the invisibility of current suffering, in the denial of current responsibility. While collective shadow material may be acted out brutally in wars, massacres, and genocides, it may also hide under the often attractive cloaks of missionary activity, such as mandating the use of particular languages, an Orwellian reality that we are experiencing in the present time. As is the nature of all shadow material, whether individual or collective, its existence and influence may be pervasive without being obvious. The collective shadow manifests outwardly in atrocities, persecution, physical suffering, sickness, poverty, malnutrition, alcoholism, crime, the death of cultures, and so on. It may also manifest more inwardly amid the complexities of each individual psyche as hatred toward oneself, one's heritage, and one's culture, depression and feelings of impotence, the desire for revenge so that others might experience something like one's own pain, etc. The collective shadow is what has historically been labeled evil. In the Christian tradition, it would be the devil, and someone who's possessed by the devil loses his human quality and acquires a demonic nature. Our primary response to evil, for Jung, must be the quest for self-knowledge, for wholeness, which presumes the assimilation of shadow material. The individual must know relentlessly how much good he can do and what crimes he's capable of. When there is an issue known in a particular society, it can be called a shadow issue if there is evidence of denial, projection, and a lack of taking individual and collective responsibility. Therefore, taking responsibility morally, politically, and spiritually is particularly crucial. The courage with which we bear our darkness frees others from having to carry it for us. For instance, to respond to examples of massive historical suffering, wars, genocide, holocausts, pervasive oppression, etc., the effects of which persist. As human beings, we have much to learn in that regard. Denial, often connected with a wish to get on with things and put the past behind us, seems the most common approach and usually the first reaction. There are and have been many attempts to deal with difficult, painful pasts through public apologies for supporting atrocities, repentance, reparation payments after wars, pilgrimages to places of great suffering, etc. But how do we deal with the past in such a way that the integration of the shadow occurs deeply and broadly within a population rather than simply at a symbolic level through leaders or policies? Remembering and speaking what often seems unspeakable is inevitably a painful process for victims and perpetrators, bystanders and witnesses. Any such process can only be regarded as successful or reasonably complete once the pain, outrage, betrayal, suffering, and all other feelings have been voiced and heard, and once responsibility has been taken. Truth-telling is both the most desirable and the most feasible way to grapple with a difficult past. One example of a terrible mass psychosis represented by the collective shadow is Nazi Germany, where people fell into the demonic nature through their personal shadow. They joined the Nazi party and did worse things than they could ever have imagined or would have done under normal social conditions. In this sense, the personal shadow is the bridge to the collective shadow. Therefore, it is important to solve one's inner conflicts first, one's personal shadow, so that one does not fall into the collective shadow unconsciously. One may then later influence other people, and society would be better off as a whole. If we practice mindfulness, we will know how to look deeply into the nature of war and, with our insight, wake people up so that together we can avoid repeating the same horrors again and again. The war is in us, but is also in everyone. Everything is ready to explode, and we are all co-responsible. To summarize, we must first acknowledge our personal shadow and enter into long and difficult negotiations with it, being honest with ourselves and our interactions with others, watching our emotional reactions and exploring our dreams, in order to not become passive victims of our shadow and of our unconscious projections, allowing us to rescue the good qualities that lie dormant within us, which improves our lives and the lives of those around us. We can then be consciously aware of the collective shadow and not fall prey to it, and take responsibility to address the denial of important issues and the lack of individual and collective initiative. The courage of bearing our darkness brings relief to others, as telling the truth is the most desirable way to deal with a difficult past, rather than dismissing the atrocities and having the shadow grow blacker until it can grow no more, and thus history repeats itself.
We cannot work on ourselves like an old car. Wow. Well, you're clearly someone who remains the same, I guess. Always. Oh, man. I don't know what to say. And in the chat, I have to wonder how many people actually pay attention to what, as far as I'm concerned, is essential. It is essential for us to be creating a better society. And oh my God, Carl Jung was a Freemason and Grand Master of the Swiss Lodge. So don't listen to anything. And everything about Carl Jung is just bullshit propaganda, and you can't work on yourself like an old car. We all have a shadow side. If you're not aware of that, your shadow comes out. Like saying you can't work on yourself like an old car. Oh man, it's thanks, Blues Man. Yeah. Post the link, okay. I did, didn't I? Link is in the chat. Hey, I have even another one. How about facing your dark side? Oh my God. No, Carol, don't do it. Well, you can chat all you want about wearing Googles and driving sideways and other live streams. You're free to do that. Or you can listen.
Like plants, so men also grow, some in the light, others in the shadows. There are many who need the shadows, and not the light. None of us are as good as we like to think. We possess animalistic drives for sex and...
Then Blues du Jours, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just leave? You don't have to be here. Nobody is, keeping you trapped in this live stream. Just leave. It's easy.
Power. We have a cruel and aggressive side that can do great harm to others, and we tend to deny our flaws and weaknesses. But what we deny does not disappear. It sinks into the unconscious and congregates in what Carl Jung called the shadow. In this video, we are going to explore how confronting the shadow and integrating its elements into our personality is a means to rejuvenate our life and heal a divided world. Only the man who goes through this darkness, writes Jung, can hope to make any further progress. For a shadow to be cast, an object must impede a path of light. The object that casts our psychological shadow is our persona. Persona is a Latin word signifying a mask worn by an actor. In Jungian psychology, the persona represents the metaphorical mask we wear in the social world. It is the collection of character traits we want others to believe define us. Or as Jung writes, the persona is a kind of mask, designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others and, on the other, to conceal the true nature of the individual. The construction of our persona begins early in life as we learn which elements of our character garner approval from family members, peers, and society at large, and which are rejected. The former we integrate into our persona, the latter we hide behind this mask. Over time, however, so as not to feel like a fraud, most of us identify with our persona and in the process hide unwanted character traits not only from others, but also from ourselves. These character traits are repressed and congregate in the unconscious to form the shadow. The shadow is the inferior part of the personality, some of all psychic elements which, because of their incompatibility with the chosen conscious attitude of the persona, are denied expression in life and therefore coalesce into a relatively autonomous splinter personality, with contrary tendencies in the unconscious. The repressed contents of our shadow do not lie dormant in the unconscious, never to be heard from again. Rather, they operate in an autonomous manner behind the spotlight of conscious awareness. One way the shadow manifests itself is through projection, wherein we perceive in other individuals, groups, nations, races, or political parties the weaknesses, faults, and evils that reside within ourselves. Or as Jung put it, we still attribute to the other fellow all the evil and inferior qualities that we do not like to recognize in ourselves, and therefore have to criticize and attack him, when all that has happened is that an inferior soul has emigrated from one person to another. The world is still full of scapegoats, just as it formerly teemed with witches and werewolves. Elements of our shadow also find expression in our day-to-day life by affecting our moods and behaviors. For the character traits, instincts, and desires that we repress fester in the unconscious, creating a tension between our conscious personality and the autonomous splinter personality of the shadow. At times of stress or conflict, when our conscious mind is unable to keep the doors of the unconscious closed, the shadow reveals itself, and often with damaging consequences. There are patients who boast that for them the shadow side does not exist. They assure us that they have no conflict, but they do not see that other things of unknown origin cumber their path. Hysterical moods, underhand tricks which they play on themselves and their neighbors, a nervous inflammation of the stomach, pains in various places, irritability for no reason, and a whole host of nervous symptoms. Rather than denying the shadow, we are far better served by shining a light on this dark side of our character. Confronting the shadow begins with accepting its existence and realizing that the personality we portray to the world and our conscious sense of self does not represent us in totality. Once accepted, honest self-reflection and self-criticism can reveal some of the traits we have been hiding from. The good and the bad, explains Jung, are bound to come to light in us, should we wish, as we ought, to live without self-deception and self-delusion. But not all the contents of our shadow can be confronted by turning within, as some elements of our character have been pushed too far into the depths of the unconscious. To unearth these elements, we can use a few different tactics. Firstly, we should take notice of any traits in other people that trigger a particularly strong emotional reaction, as this is a sign that the same trait lies within us. Another tactic is to peer into the shadow of someone close to us, a task that is typically easier than peering into our own. For although some aspects of the shadow are personal, much that gets deposited there is influenced by social and cultural trends, and so shared among members of our society. A character trait we reject has likely been rejected by a sibling or close friend. If we can learn about their shadow, clues about our own will be revealed. I have come to the conclusion that the most individual thing about man is surely his consciousness, but that his shadow is far less individualized. The reason being that a man is distinguished from his fellows more by his virtues than by his negative qualities. One of the many benefits of gaining greater knowledge of our dark side is that it creates a contrast that allows the good of our character to stand out in greater prominence. Or as Jung writes, when we confront the shadow, we suddenly see both sides. We become aware not only of our moral inferiorities, but also, automatically, of our good qualities. We rightly say, I can't be as bad as all that. To confront a person with his shadow is to show him his own light. Confronting the shadow also reduces the ability of our flaws and weaknesses to wreak havoc on our life. Awareness of an anger issue, selfishness, greed, or aggression, or of an obsession or compulsion, grants us the opportunity to exert a modicum of control over it. We can strive to overcome the flaw, or at least minimize its potential damage, for as Jung explains, the psychiatrist knows that certain dangerous unconscious forces can be rendered harmless, or at least held in check, if they are made conscious, that is, if the patient can assimilate them and integrate them with his personality. In the shadow, we also discover instinctual drives for aggression, power, and sex that contain immense amounts of energy. In becoming aware of these drives and sublimating them, that is, putting them in the service of higher ends, these drives can empower us, motivate us to take the needed risks for a fulfilling life, and even spur our creativity. Only down below, writes Jung, can we find the fiery source of life. The shadow contains more than just animalistic instincts, flaws, and weaknesses. It is also home to strengths of our character which we repressed as a result of a poor upbringing, or adapting to a sick society. Some people, for example, deny their intelligence, creativity, resoluteness, or ability to act in defiance of corrupt authority figures. The shadow, writes Jung, does not consist only of morally reprehensible tendencies, but also displays a number of good qualities, such as normal instincts, appropriate reactions, realistic insights, creative impulses, etc. The shadow is on one side regrettable and reprehensible weakness, on the other side, healthy instinctivity and the prerequisite for higher consciousness. To harness the positive side of our shadow requires more than merely observing what resides in its depths. We should consciously integrate the elements of our shadow into our character and allow them expression in our day-to-day life. Or as Jung's renowned student Erich Neumann wrote, the recognition and acceptance of the shadow presupposes more than a mere willingness to look at one's dark brother, and then to return him to a state of suppression where he languishes like a prisoner in a jail. It involves granting him freedom to share in one's life. Reconnecting with the positive side of our shadow, minimizing the effects of its negative side, and integrating it all into our conscious sense of self produces a character that tends toward the ideal of wholeness, which Jung believed defined the psychologically healthy. As we approach a state of wholeness, we become more attractive to other people, for human beings possess an instinctive suspicion of those who appear too good and who identify too much with their persona. We know that beneath a bright persona lurks a dark and dangerous shadow. Far more attractive is the complete character, the whole man, who knows not only of his strengths, virtues, and potential for good, but also of his weaknesses, faults, and potential for evil. Or as Jung writes, the shadow belongs to the wholeness of the personality. The strong man must somewhere be weak. Somewhere the clever man must be stupid. Otherwise he is too good to be true and falls back on pose and bluff. Is it not an old truth that woman loves the weaknesses of the strong man more than his strength, and the stupidity of the clever man more than his cleverness? Her love wants the whole man. Those of us who take up the challenge of confronting the shadow will also help heal a divided world. For when we face the shadow, we withdraw our projections, and we stop participating in the rampant scapegoating of political opponents or members of a different race, religion, ethnicity, or gender. If you imagine someone who is brave enough to withdraw all these projections, writes Jung, then you get an individual who is conscious of a pretty thick shadow. Such a man has saddled himself with new problems and conflicts. He has become a serious problem to himself, as he is now unable to say that they do this or that. They are wrong, and they must be fought against. Too many people see all the problems in society and all the problems of other people, but fail to notice the much more serious problem that lies within themselves. They fail to see they are a character split in two, and until they confront the shadow side, they will only amplify the hostility and divisiveness of the modern world. The man who confronts his shadow knows that whatever is wrong in the world is in himself. And if he only learns to deal with his own shadow, he has done something real for the world. He has succeeded in shouldering at least an infinitesimal part of the gigantic, unsolved social problems of our day. How can anyone see straight when he does not even see himself and the darkness he unconsciously carries with him into all his dealings? Access the transcript in the art we use in.
I will put the link in to that video, and I recommend that you actually play both of those videos back and listen really carefully to what he is saying. I saw a comment where somebody said something about, doing this work will lead you to a loving relationship with yourself. I don't see... doing this work will lead you to a real relationship with yourself. You will be real, and I'd say doing this work will lead you to respect yourself. It is imperative to become real. To become real, to take the mask off, to be authentic, and to live honestly and speak honestly. And, can you imagine if we were raised with this type of education? Can you imagine what society would be if we didn't have everybody blaming everybody else and incapable of taking any responsibility for all of the shit that's in their wake, and they're just creating more and more? Can you imagine what this society would be if even the majority of people were honest and authentic? Where is it? Awake or asleep, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, it's all Americans were raised in strange ways. The greatest generation. This country, talk about a collective shadow. Holy shit. And talk about a people being so in denial of the evil that they cause as they just pretend that they're the superior ones. Americans. So, I don't see how this country could have been anything but the evil that we have brought to the world and are now bringing to ourselves. If we're so unaware and unconscious of the consciousness so unaware that our own self-development is essential to creating goodness in our society, then we can only create the shit that we live now. That's why this work is essential. And it is absolutely 100% the way to change the world. And that's in you. You change. We sure do need you in the aggregate, to have any effect of scale. But that doesn't mean that every individual, just stops doing the work because they think, well, yeah, I'm not going to do anything because it's not going to have any effect. Well, it certainly has an effect on your soul. It certainly has an effect on your life. It would have an effect on the people around you. You might even be a good power of example. But most people think they're fine. Self-deception is a big disease that needs to be weeded out. It needs to be weeded out. And you can only do that by self-reflection, by examining how you operate in life. Now, Karen Horney, a psychiatrist, said something that I read decades ago, and it had a profound effect on me, which was, the best therapist is life itself. For sure. So, I'm going to end early, and hey, how you live, the decisions that you make, it's all up to you. Live honestly, speak honestly, which requires doing work on yourself, which requires, looking at your shadow, acknowledging it, examination of the self. You can reflect on how you operate in the world. Ask yourself, am I being honest with the things that I say? Do I live honestly, or am I putting on the mask and pretending that, I'm this or that? Because, well, if I don't, I'm not going to get the approval of my social network. A whole lot of people are still children who need the approval of those around them. And they live a lie to get that approval. And that's a life that is rendered meaningless, So, I wish we had more people doing it. It's fascinating work. It's exciting. It's really exciting. It's exciting. It's especially exciting to have people around you who are also doing that work, so that you can, work together. And it's very exciting when you begin to recognize, wow, I didn't know that I did these things based on a past that was informing my present, and now I can actually act based on my present instead of the past that carries so much weight in our life. All of these people who say, let the past be the past, and just who have never looked into their own past or and recognize the power of the past. Look at history, the power of history, the power of our individual pasts. They inform our present. That past is making decisions in the present time, but a whole lot of people don't recognize it. They don't, because they haven't searched their own self. They haven't done that self-examination. They don't even know why they do what they do. They don't understand the choices that they've made. You know, so... And here I am talking to no one. All right. Be the best self that you can be in life. Thanks for showing up. Hope to see you tomorrow night. And good night and good luck. Ciao.